Back with you tonight, John in Focus, Newzroom Afrika, Channel 405. Thanks for staying. An interesting conversation we are having with Eastern Cape Education spokesperson Malibongwe Mtima and Dr. Yanga Majola, Socio-Linguist and lecturer at the Tshwane University of Technology, around this pilot in the use of mother tongue language in the assessing as well as the writing of subjects such as mathematics, accounting, English, science, engineering, and so forth and so on. So we've heard of the support being given to the professionals in being able to teach this, but also the impact that certainly this is having. So let's look at this then, Dr. Majola, a little bit more. When students are assessed through language that they master, how does that then contribute towards their performance?
How does that contribute towards?
To their performance.
I think first of all, I mean, as you would know, that language is the basic way of communicating. And for us to, be more competent in a language is because we use it quite often. And I mean, you use English most of the time on studio. And so every day you learn new terms and you become better in English because you use it often. Now, if you can look at most of the learners, particularly in rural areas, and I know that it may not be the case in some, urban areas, you'll realize that their mother tongue or their home language is the language that they use throughout the day. They use it with their friends. They use it with their families. They use it everywhere. And, then you find that when a learner is exposed to a new language, because learners are not different. That is why they say that the manner in which you can speak English doesn't really prove your competence, because you may not be good in speaking English, but you can actually be good in actually doing some mechanical things like fixing cars or doing other things that are, you can do with your hands. So this helps learners not to have two problems. One, of not understanding the language, and two, of not understanding the content. So if a learner says, because I think it's an option that is given to learners to say that if you feel that English is not easy for you, then you can opt using isiXhosa or Sesotho, which is a language that you are already used to. So the studies have proven that it's actually better for a student to use a language that they are comfortable with. Now, for one to say a language they are comfortable with, it sometimes means a language that they use often. This will not be the same. If I use English often, English will be I'll be more comfortable with English. If I use isiXhosa more often, then I will be comfortable with using isiXhosa in my education. So It's just making, the students' lives more easier and so that they can be able to easily understand information. But it doesn't mean it will only be isiXhosa. The English will still also be available.
Yeah.
Hence, there's a term called Translanguaging, which is sometimes used as a pedagogy, where a teacher is trained to be able to survive in a multilingual context, in a multilingual classroom, where they can be able to code switch from one language to the other depending on the kind of students that they have.
Yeah.
So that is as far as the studies that have been conducted about this are concerned.
So is that translanguaging, that being able to switch the code, also applicable when you are transitioning from one education system to the next? For example, you're looking at institutions of higher learning versus basic education institutions. So they'll be coming from basic education institutions using one particular language, transitioning to a different education system. Do we have, in other words, a solid body of work? Have we got the learning vocabulary? And do we have the concepts that are then able to make sense for them as they are transferring?
Well, this is the area or the gap that may need to be filled by the Department of Basic Education, together with likes of your PENSALP and so on. Because remember that the provision on the Constitution and the language and education policy is throughout. But in the main, it was mostly implemented from grades 1 to 3, where learners were taught using their mother tongue. Now, if it happens that they were not taught from grade 4 up until grade 9, then that is a gap that needs to be filled, where they should be able to be taught in their mother tongue throughout, so that it's not something that they are unfamiliar with. But the understanding in this case is that these learners are the ones that will opt to use the isiXhosa option, simply because of the challenges that they themselves have raised. Because remember, this is not something that someone else is imposing on them to say, now you are going to use isiXhosa or you are going to use Sesotho. It is to say that based on the surveys that were conducted, a number of surveys, a number of studies that were conducted, the same learners indicated that we would, be in a better position to be taught in isiXhosa and then also be assessed in isiXhosa. So the translanguaging is more of a pedagogy, of a teaching strategy that is used by teachers switching from one language to the other. Let us say, you are in a classroom where one student, prefers to be addressed in isiXhosa and another one prefers to be addressed in English. You do not have to close the opportunity for the learner who wants to speak in isiXhosa. When the learner wants to express themselves, they've got a right protected by the Constitution, protected by the language and education policy, to say that they must not be limited simply because of the incompetence of the teacher in the language. Hence, even at university level, we are encouraging, there are a number of structures that are in place that are encouraging multilingualism, that are encouraging lecturers to be skilled and trained to be able to survive and to approach this translanguaging with a better understanding.
Yeah. Malibongwe, of course, the question has always been, what will the cost implications be of the provision of a mother tongue language in our current education model? And others would say, let's weigh the cost versus the cost benefits. You've already done the exercise. So what are you learning from that particular process? And are there smart cost reduction strategies that we could implement, certainly?
Look, I want to first add one issue on the issue of literation that we spoke about, the use of concepts. And I think, on the other hand, we have to be honest and say, Tabo, for instance, the English that we're using is not using pure English words. There are Greek words that have been used. There are Latin words that have been used. Therefore, there is nothing new that we are going to do. If for instance, the literation is, or the use of concept, is not something new. It has been done. But what we want to say in the department, the issue of for instance, the issue of budget, we've been able to work and partner with various institutions, but we still, of course, will appreciate any other person that comes through. Because, for instance, you're working with Pencil, you're working with National Lexicology Xhosa Unit, working with universities, and their partnerships. Because even individuals like your Professor Sesotho, your Professor Sacho, people that are saying we want to see this growing, and as such, we are going to contribute immensely. I mentioned to you initially, Tabo, that we've got people like Professor Kumalo from Northwest that are currently busy with human data development, so that at the end of the day, you can access any and everything wherever you are, irrespective of your location. The intention is to ensure that with what we have, we work across the board to ensure that your human language technology, which is the availability of content and the development of it, is a little bit less costly, using, of course, technology. But we are aware that there is a lot that we still have to go through, because, like I say, language evolves on a daily basis. Therefore, we cannot say we are happy with the budget. As the program evolves, we may need more, but currently what we are getting from various partners is enough or sufficient enough to keep us going.
Dr. Majola, I'm sure you and your colleagues have also had this conversation, but it's the publication of works in African languages which can be used at institutions of higher learning. That's an area that is also maybe still a gap at this particular point. What's the role of politics there, and what needs to happen to unlock that space?
Well, I mean, as you know, and as Mr. Mtima has said here, it's not going to be an easy journey. But for me, because it talks to the issues raised from the ground, and it actually puts the needs of the students to the fore, it then becomes important, and it means that we must do all we can. Of course, there are politics. I mean, for example, as a socio-linguist, I would have raised issues around languages that are somehow sidelined in the process, even at the elevation of isiXhosa. Someone else may raise something else to say, no, this will not work. But I think at the center of this all is the negative attitudes that are somehow associated with the promotion of mother tongue education. There are still people who, in South Africa in 2022, who believe that it is not, I mean, for you to prove your intelligence, you must be able to use English, you know, and I think we've passed that level. Now we're trying to look at how can we source these individuals that are capable, despite the language that they use, so that we can be able to support them nonetheless. Now, I think, you know, it is, like I said, going to be difficult because the attitudes are associated with this. There are people who generally don't feel and see the need for the development of African languages, even when the policies are in support of a multilingual approach, you know, in general. But there are still those people that are going to somehow, you know, be gatekeepers to this process, sort of like blocking the move towards a multilingual approach, particularly in higher education. Unfortunately, you know, the only thing that we can do as researchers and as people who are in the higher education sector, it is to continue embarking on research that should support departments like the Basic of Education and other departments to see a reason why this has to be done. The budgeting and so on is a problem, but I think it's also, you know, it shouldn't be something that is brought as a reason why this may not be successful, because there's a lot of things that have been done, you know, in some of the departments, and they weren't as important as supporting the learners in their own teaching, especially based on what they say they want. So I think that we all have to play our role in the development of these African languages and also be able to support these particular students. We cannot control everything, but we can at least try in the different spaces that we're in.
Gentlemen, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for bringing light to the subject, and thank you for joining us this evening. That is the Eastern Cape Education spokesperson, Malibongwe Mtima, and Dr. Yanga Majola, socio-linguist and lecturer at the Tshwane University of Technology.